Welcome to episode 55 of the 301 show. We've got a great episode on tap for you here today as we get into the Winter Olympics. The Wild and the Frost have a few weeks off at this point. The Vikings, more stuff keeps coming out about them firing Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. You do have a reckless speculation for a trade idea and an offseason plan that I think I have not heard anyone really talk about so far, as well as the Timberwolves are back on track in the NBA. All of that and more coming up here on episode 55 of the 301 show.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Before we get into the first segment, of episode 55, I ask you to please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out with pushing the show out to more people, and it would, help me a lot. It's free to do both of those. If you end up not liking the channel and the content that we put out, you can always unsubscribe from this channel. But if you could subscribe for right now, that would be fantastic. Also, you can leave comments down below if you agree or disagree with me on anything. You can email the show. The email is in the description below this episode. It is also just frozennorth30@gmail.com. Let's get into it. On to our first segment here of the episode, the Target Field Talkers. We have two shorter segments to get in here, or two shorter talking points to get into in this one, which is probably good because we've got some longer discussions to have for a couple other segments here. But first thing is the Twins actually added somebody to their roster, or the 40-man roster, and they added somebody to their bullpen. They claimed a Jackson Kowar off of waivers. He's a relief pitcher. This is also via Bobby Nightingale. He is a relief pitcher from the Seattle Mariners. In 2025, he pitched in 15 games. He had 17 innings pitched, so lighter workload there. It was up and down between the majors and AAA. But he had 17 innings pitched. He had a 4.24 ERA and a 2.14 strikeout to walk ratio. So again, it more seems like they just added somebody to the bullpen. It's more just adding somebody to the roster than anything else. The other big thing that happened here is there's a report that came out from a few different sources, but it was compiled here on Sports Illustrated by Will Ragatz. We'll give credit to the other people that had quotes here. But between MLB Network's Matt Vasgersian, he said that we'll start with Darren Doogie Wolfson of 5 Eyewitness News. He said the Twins they're basically saying the Twins were interested in Framber Valdez. He said the Twins' interest in Valdez was genuine and that they were heavily involved, but added that he had zero sense that they came close to the Tigers' offer. That was the direct quote from the SI Will Raggett's article, so that they were heavily involved in the Valdez sweepstakes, basically, and MLB Network's Matt Vasgersian basically backed that up and said that the Twins were involved. In 2025, Valdez started 31 games. He pitched two of those were complete games. 192 innings pitched. He went 13-11 on the year. He had a 3.66 ERA, 187 strikeouts, and 68 walks. That led him to sign with the Detroit Tigers on a 3-year, $115 million contract. And it again, like stated by Doogie, it probably wasn't that close of a deal that the Twins offered to what he actually signed for. I can't see at this point the Twins with the ownership the way it is, having those resources to go out and sign a guy like Valdez. But this is kind of goes back to the I know he's gone now, and he wasn't the one that made this offer, but where Derek Falvey was saying that he wants to spend and he wants to add to this team. So it seems like ownership was like, yeah, you can offer him a contract, but you can only offer him X amount. And from all the research I did, I could not find a dollar value of what the Twins were offering him and what they wanted to offer him. So I am unsure about that part of it. But again, it was apparently way less than 3 years, $115 million over those 3 years. But with the addition of Valdez and with bringing back, they did bring back Tariq Skubal too on arbitration, which there's a story about that seems insane to me. Of that he, Jeff Passan reported this. Again, we're not trying to turn this into Comerica Park talkers here, but the Tigers hit arbitration with Tariq Skubal, and he basically they each submitted an offer to three arbiters, and the arbiters would determine which of those two numbers is more appropriate for that player. And a lot of times too, the team and the player will make their case as to why they think they deserve the number that they submitted. So the Tariq Skubal is coming off back-to-back Cy Young awards, and he said, I think I deserve $32 million. The Detroit Tigers said, we think you deserve $19 million. And guess which one the arbiters sided with? That was Tariq Skubal. They said he absolutely deserves $32 million more than $19 million. And so because of that and the Valdez deal, the Tigers starting rotation, just their starting rotation, is now making $87 million in 2026. In comparison, the Twins' entire roster right now in 2026 is making $92 million. So the Twins staff, or the Twins ownership, is only spending $5 million more than the Tigers' entire starting pitching rotation. And the starting pitching rotation is 5 guys. So you got 26 guys making only $5 million more than the 5 Tigers starters at this point, which I thought was absolutely insane. But yeah, we can move on to predictions here at this point. I do want to bring up, and I'll try to remember to do this more going forward, but We haven't got an update on target field talkers here in a second. We haven't had any come off the board recently, but right now target field talker sits at 30 correct predicted out of 101 that have come off the board, and that is just under 30%. Rounds up to 30%. We've got 3 coming on the board here. I said that the Tigers have a better team ERA than the Twins do in 2026. So not just the starters, the entire staff. I think that one's probably a bunt at this point if we're talking about how easy it is to get this correct. I think it's pretty likely that the Tigers do have a better team ERA. Second prediction here is Jackson Kowar, the pitcher that they claimed off of waivers from the Mariners, will pitch at least 25 games for the Twins in the 2026 regular season, I should say. His career high for most games in a single season was 23. So I think he is going to break his career high, basically, for the Twins here. Now, again, very much the way I get burned here is he gets traded or released and still pitches 25 games, but they're just not for the Twins. But I'm saying he pitches at least 25 regular season games for the Twins in 2026. And then third and final prediction of this episode is the Twins have multiple players named to the AL All-Star team. Every team has at least one player named, and so I think the Twins will get at least 2. And again, that can be as a substitution, like they don't on the initial roster, and then they, or if, like I think last year someone was hurt and Joe Ryan got in, or Joe Ryan was hurt and had to sit out, or 2 years ago it was with Correa. Correa got in and he was hurt, so he didn't play in it. So they name somebody else to the roster. So if that happens and another Twin gets in, if it's another player that gets hurt and another Twin gets in, this counts. If a Twins player makes the team and then doesn't play in it because he's hurt or has to withdraw, this still counts. They just will be named to the AL All-Star team is my prediction, and that is in 2026. All right, moving on to Rinkside Rundown. We'll start with the Frost, as again they are on their Olympic break. Couple of I'll just update kind of the players that are over there on what happened. Some USA stuff too. Again, Minnesotan American. So the U.S. women's team took on Czechia, and the U.S. team won 5-1. And the only Frost player to have a point in that game was Kelly Panic, and she had 1 assist. So yeah, there's your Frost Olympic update there. Short and sweet. But yeah, moving on now to the Wild. The Wild are now 34-14-10. They have 72 points on the season. They are second in the Central Division. They are second in the Western Conference. They have a 3.31 goals for per game, which is 11th in the NHL. They are 2.86 goals against per game, which is 8th fewest in the NHL. They have 7 shutouts, which is second behind, again, only the New York Islanders. Their power play is clipping at a 25.4% rate. That's still up there, sitting at 6th in the NHL. They have a 77.2% on the penalty kill. That is tied for 24th. The face-off percentage is 46.4%, which is 31st in the NHL. The shots per game is 28.7. That is 12th most in the NHL. Shots against are 30.0, which is tied for 27th. And that is 27th fewest. So that is that there's only a handful of teams with averaging more shots against per game than the Wild. Shots against per game than the Wild. If we look at the two goaltenders, Gus is 29-6 on the year. He has a .907 save percentage, which is tied for 17th. He has a 2.64 goals against average. That is 20th in the league. He has 3 shutouts on the season, which is tied for 4th. And Wally is 14-5-4 on the year. He has a He has a .914 save percentage, which is 6th. He has a 2.72 goals against average, which is tied for 22nd. And he has 4 shutouts, which is tied for 2nd, again, only behind Ilya Sorokin of the New York Islanders. If we look back over the last 3 games here before the Olympic break, the Wild were in Edmonton to take on the Oilers, which they won 7-3. They ran away with that one. The Oilers were hanging tough early on, but the Wild pulled away late to win by 4 goals. The Wild took on the Canadiens in the second meeting of the year. First meeting was the game where Cole Caulfield scored with 15 seconds left in regulation to win 4-3. This one was also a 4-3 game, but the Wild did win in overtime in this one. So both games ended with a 4-3 win, and the home team winning that one in the two games against Montreal. And then we get to the Nashville Predators. The Wild played in Nashville, where Matt Boldy had a hat trick in the first 12 minutes of the game, but it took overtime. The Wild ended up winning that game 6-5 in overtime. Gus, I don't think, played particularly well in at least early on. I thought he settled down in the second and third, but I don't think he played super well in the first period. He did end up stopping 30 of 35 shots, and Spurgeon wins it in overtime. So again, I just think that they aren't, like, they're going to get game. There's going to be games like that from your goaltenders, but again, I do think that this team is different in that you'll have a game like that from your goaltender, but they have the offense to say, hey, goalies, the offense is putting you guys on their back tonight. But then there's games where the offense isn't going and the goalies are like, we'll steal this one for you. And like, ideally you have more games where everybody's clicking and you win the game 4-1 or 4-0. But if there's a game where you have to win at 1-0 and the goalies have to stand on their heads, like, the Wild have the ability to do that. And clearly, as we just saw in the game in Nashville, the offense can explode if the goaltenders have an off night. And I think that's different from Wild teams we've seen in the past, with like the Parisi and Suter era, basically. And they would just try to get a 1-0 or 2-0 lead or 2-1 lead or something like that. And they would just play super defensive hockey. And this Wild team is capable of playing very defensive hockey and playing that at a high level, but with the Quinn Hughes and with the Kirill Kaprizov and with a Matt Boldy and even Brock Faber is turning it on. I thought he started off the season looking like he might need to take a game off in the press box, but he's looking like he's made the argument to be the 4th best player on this team. We'll say 4th best skater on this team, because I don't like comparing goaltenders to skaters, because they are just such different positions. So 4th best skater on this team behind Boldy, Kaprizov, and Quinn Hughes, and I think that this team just has all of the components except for one. There's one component that they still need, but I think there is a lot of components here of a Stanley Cup winning team. And they've laid the groundwork of a Stanley Cup winning team here. Now, the thing that we have talked about here, and I'm going to keep bringing it up until either after the trade deadline passes and they don't address it, or they do address it. I'm going to keep bringing it up, and that thing is center, the face-offs, and I think there's two other options of centers that they could use here, and one is, I think, a lot more out there. It's like the Vikings trying to go get Joe Burrow at quarterback. Like, it's just not, I don't think, super realistic, although I think this is more realistic than the Vikings going to get Joe Burrow. But that one being Jack Hughes. I just think that the Wild would have to give up a Jesper Wallstedt and a Charlie Stramel and a 3 to 4 first round picks. And I think that might be just a little bit much for a Jack Hughes, especially after you gave up that much for Quinn Hughes. But I'm willing to give up Charlie Stramel, and I'm willing to give up Jesper Wallstedt for Jack Hughes. It's I get hung up on the 4 first round picks being part of it. The 3 to 4 first round picks, if that's the case. If it was Stramel, Wallstedt, and 2 first round picks, I think I'm in on Jack Hughes. But another guy, teammate of Jack Hughes, that could be an option here, and I think a fantastic option for the Wild as a center option. He's got the scoring, he's got the face off. He would be, I think, a true 1C, and you've got Eriksson Ek on the 2C, and then you can bump Hartman down to be the 3C or a winger, and you've got you just have a lot more options with this. But that one being a Nico Hischier, and I think that would take a lot less than Jesper Wallstedt, Charlie Stramel, and 4 firsts. I think Nico Hischier, again, I'm putting him in the maybe a little bit of a stretch, but still very realistic bin. Whereas Jack Hughes is basically the reverse of that, of it being very much a stretch, but still 2% realistic. I think Nico Hischier is a far better option. Just for what you have to give up. And you probably would have to give up a Jesper Wallstedt for that one. And I think too, the report I heard too online, and now I forgot to write it down, so I'm now blanking on where who said it, but you have a guy in the building that's played with this team last year, and he's part of the front office, and he's part of the administration, and he played with this team last year. He's worked well with Gus, and there's a social media video of him going out to practice one day with the Wild, and that's Marc-Andre Fleury. I think if you trade Jesper Wallstedt, I think that there is a real possibility that that Marc-Andre Fleury could come out of retirement for the rest of this season, and I think that puts you in a position of you need to find a backup goalie in the offseason, which again is not super hard to do because I think you have your starter in Philip Gustafsson. You've given him a 5-year extension after this year. So you've got him for the rest of the season plus 5 more after. So you have your starter locked up. But I think that you Marc-Andre Fleury could be the backup replacement for the rest of this season for the Wild, if they so choose to trade a Wallstedt option. So again, keep all of that in mind when as again, it's the beginning of March. The rosters are right now are on a freeze because of the Olympics. They don't want guys having to worry about, families having to worry about, moving while potentially they're overplaying in Italy in the Olympics, or they're just, if they're not playing in the Olympics, they're just hanging out. I think the NHL is like, no, we're not going to make guys worry about that for a couple weeks here. So the Wild cannot make it. No team in the NHL can make trades at this point. So expect that to pick back up after the Olympics, and have that be a couple week sprint to the trade deadline, which is in the beginning of March. Again, I forget exactly what day it is, but again, the center options I think are the big move, to have like a top line center on this team, or a top two, a 1C or a 2C, and I think that's probably because I don't know what else they'd really want to improve on that's in season for this team. So move on to predictions here. I had two come off the board. I said that Kirill Kaprizov scores 30 plus goals before February 1st. He scored exactly 30 goals before February 1st, and then added a couple more after that. But he is at exactly 30 on February 1st. So second prediction that came off the board was the Wild get at least 4 of their next 6 points. They got 6 of their next 6 points. So that also is correct. Total correct is up to 46 out of 109 total predicted, and that is 42%. 3 predictions going on the board here. We've got some Olympic predictions. I said Brock Faber scores against Canada in the 2026 Olympics. So this is a parlay because they are in separate pools. So the U.S. and Canada will play each other in the bracket play, and Brock Faber will score against Canada in that game. And then I said Taylor Heisey and/or Matt Boldy will score an OT winner for the United States in the 2026 Olympics. I think at least one of those two is going to have some heroics in this Olympic Games here. And then I think the final prediction here is that Philip Gustafsson will have a shutout in the 2026 Olympics. So I think he's probably going to be the starter for Sweden, and he will have a shutout in at least one of the games in the Olympics. All right, moving on to the Wolves Den here. We got a lot to get into on this one. So the Timberwolves are now 32-20 on the year. They are 6th in the Western Conference, and they are 9th in the NBA. The last week, they had 2 games against the Memphis Grizzlies, and they had a game in Toronto. 2 games against the Grizzlies were both in Memphis. They won the first one 131-114, and then lost the second one 137-128. And then they traveled north to Toronto, where they took on the Raptors, winning 128-126. They are now on a homestand for a while before the All-Star break, and a couple of games after the All-Star break too. But they play the Pelicans tonight as I'm recording this, Friday, February 6th at 7 p.m. before hosting the Clippers, the James Harden-less Clippers, as they traded Harden away, on Sunday, February 8th at 2 p.m. Then they play the Hawks at home at 7 p.m. on Monday, February 9th, and the Portland Trail Blazers at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, February 11th. That Portland game is the last game before the All-Star break. So, yeah, the Wolves were busy with obviously 3 games, and they were busy yesterday as the trade deadline was yesterday. They made a couple of trades here. The first trade was with the actually both of them were with the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls, it was a 3-team trade. The first one was with the Bulls and the Pistons. The Bulls received Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley, and the Pistons received Kevin Huerter, Dario Saric, a 2026 first round pick swap with the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves didn't receive any assets in this trade except they received some cap relief, so they could potentially try to go get Giannis Antetokounmpo, which they were trying to do and put a trade package together to send to Milwaukee. Well, let's actually talk about that. So that is also the fact that they were trying to get Giannis is why they did not get a Colby White back in that deal. They could have gotten Colby White, but they were trying to go out and get Giannis Antetokounmpo, so they didn't get anything back because they wanted that roster spot. They wanted the cap space to go out and get Giannis. Again, the salary cap in the NBA is insane, where there's a salary cap, and then if you're over the salary cap, you have to pay a tax, and then there's what they call the first apron, and if you're over the first apron, which is higher than the salary cap, there's restrictions on who you can sign and who you can trade with, and then there's a second apron, and you basically can't do any of that if you're over the second apron. And the Wolves got underneath the first apron with moving Mike Conley out. So Mike Conley left. They were trying to get Giannis so that it was easier to make a trade with the Bucks if they moved Mike Conley. And then this is per Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix. The Bucks wanted Jaden McDaniels and multiple first-round picks, which the Timberwolves did not have multiple first-round picks to trade away. There's a rule in the NBA where you have to have a first-round pick at least going into the draft every other year. And with the Rudy trade and with the trade last year to go up and get a few players, which, again, we'll get to one of them in just a second here, they did not have enough first-round picks to satisfy the Bucks, and they were also trying to work in a third team where they could send Jaden McDaniels to the Bucks and maybe Julius Randle somewhere else, and that team could send first-round picks to the Bucks. So at the end of the day, Giannis was not traded. I do believe that at least the trade talks, I don't know if it'll be with the Wolves, but the Giannis trade talks will heat up again in the summer, in the offseason. I think he is likely going to be traded in the offseason. But I also think, too, at the same time, if you're the Bucks and you do trade him in the offseason, it's going to be for less value because he has, half a season less. If you traded him this year, you would get him, or at the trade deadline, you would get him for the rest of the team getting Giannis would get him for the rest of this season, the playoff run. And they would also get him for the entirety of next season, too, because he is under contract for next season. The year after that, he has a player option, so he could opt into that year, too, and be there for, another year after that, or 2 full seasons. But again, Giannis is not. It will stay a Buck for the rest of this season. But the Wolves did, again, they do need guard depth at this point, so they did make a trade. They are sending Rob Dillingham, who they traded or I think they traded up for last season, but it was one of their 2 picks, or 2 years ago, excuse me. It was one of their 2 picks 2 years ago. So they sent Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and 4 second-round picks to the Chicago Bulls. They're making another trade with the Bulls here for Ayo Dosunmu and Julian Phillips. So there's a guard and then another Julian Phillips coming back in that deal. And Dosunmu is a guy that he's not a starter, but he is a guy that is going to be in the rotation. He'll be coming off the bench. He'll be getting playing time. It'll be Dosunmu, Naz Reid, and I'm forgetting who else comes off the bench for them off the top of my head right now. But there's a third player. It'll be solid 8-man rotation for the Wolves. Jaden Clark does from time to time. This is actually going to bother me. I'm just going to look up their roster really quick. But it is like their starters are Dante DiVincenzo, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and so Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, and Jaden McDaniels are their 5 starters. And then coming off the bench, it was Mike Conley was the other guy that comes off the bench. That's who it is. So they get Mike Conley back to be that was the other thing is the Mike Conley got traded then to the Charlotte Hornets, and the rule is if somebody buys out in the NBA, if you get bought out, so if you basically are no longer with that team, you are will get bought out, and you will you can sign with 28 teams of the 32 NBA teams. So the 2 teams you cannot sign with are the team that just bought you out and the team that, if it was a trade like this, that traded you to that team. So if the Bulls had bought him out, then the Wolves would not be able to bring Mike Conley back. But the Bulls traded him to the Hornets, and then the Hornets bought him out. So now the Wolves, again, this is from Shams, ESPN Insider. Shams, Mike Conley is being brought back to the Wolves. At least that is the plan here. And so they are looking at Mike Conley and basically saying, again, he's not having a great year production-wise. He's probably having the worst year of his career production-wise, especially the last month and a half. He has not been good on the court. But they are looking at him more as a assistant coach role, basically, like a leadership, help the young guys locker room role than a you'll help us on the court role, which it will help on the court because he's helping everyone else out. So he is a fantastic guy to have in the room at the very least. And when he's on, if he is on, he can be still a good player. But again, we just haven't seen that Mike Conley in a while now. So that is the 10-minute Wolves trade deadline recap here. Again, they've got homestand. I think it's in total a 7-game homestand coming up, including the 3 games after the break. So got a few games here in a row at Target Center. We'll move on to predictions here. Had 2 come off the board for the Wolves. The first one was incorrect. I said that they would win both games against the Memphis Grizzlies. They did not. And then I said that Julius Randle will score 35 plus in a game before February 1st. This should have come off the board a while ago because he had, I think it was 38 in a game, one game a while ago. So that is correct. Total correct is 44 out of total predicted being 131. So that is 34% correct. I've got 3 new predictions coming on the board here. I said that the Wolves will win. I guess it's a 6-game homestand. So you got 2 home games after the break. Wolves win at least 5 of their next 6 games. So those 6 games being at home. They play the Clippers on Super Bowl Sunday. I think the Wolves will beat the Clippers by 20 plus points. And then the Wolves have a 3+ game winning streak going into the All-Star break. So this is basically saying that they will beat the Clippers, Hawks, and Trailblazers going into the All-Star break. All right, moving on to the final team segment of today's episode, the Nordic Report. And the fallout of the Kwesi firing continues here. So we'll get into some rumors, I guess, the conflicting reports that have happened, or that have come out about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, and his relationship with Kevin O'Connell. So the first thing here is that Kwesi did take 2 weeks off to work virtually during training camp after the birth of his son. So that, again, if you want to say, like, what, like probably the 3 to 4, we'll call it the 4 most important times of the season are for a general manager. What those 4 times are. The first one, or those, I guess you can put them in any order you want, but it's the draft, it's the trade deadline, it's free agency, and it's training camp when you're making roster cuts. So the fact that he took 2 to 3 weeks off to not be at training camp is a red flag. Now, the report from Diana Rossini said that the Vikings did bless those 2 weeks, basically, and said it was okay for him to miss those 2 weeks. So the Vikings were at least initially okay with it. But then there's also reports that the Vikings were actually close to trading JJ McCarthy, and that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell didn't see eye to eye on that, and Kevin O'Connell wanted to re-sign Darnold, and Kwesi wanted to let Darnold walk and keep JJ McCarthy. But apparently they were close to trading JJ McCarthy to the Raiders last year. But Tom Pelissero on the Rich Eisen show said that was not the case, and that Kwesi and KOC basically just don't hate each other, and that McCarthy wasn't that close to being traded. Now, the guys like Pelissero and Rappaport and Schefter, these insiders, NFL insiders that get these reports here are they get information, and it's like there's a lot of favors being done too. So it's like hey, I'll give you this if you can put out this report, I'll give you a piece of news for in the future, basically. Like, I'll owe you. And so part of me wonders if he's putting out this report because someone in the Vikings building doesn't want to piss McCarthy off, and they know that he's going to be the quarterback next year, or he's going to be at least in competition to be the quarterback next year, and just doesn't want to add to that, which I do have a JJ McCarthy discussion here. Like, part of me just wonders if that's what Tom Pelissero is doing. Is it's a, whether that be KOC or one of the coaches or one of the higher ups being like, no, let's make sure everything is kumbaya in the building, and we can focus on winning games, and we don't, like, McCarthy's still developing, and we don't want to add this to his plate, basically. And again, I can understand, I can see that being the case. I can see that being true at this point. And but I could also see it just being true that Tom Pelissero just is correct in that. Like neither one would surprise me if it actually was the case. Now, JJ McCarthy here, again, if we're talking who the quarterback is going to be in week 1, and I do have some realistic options of because we've talked about Mac Jones, and we've talked about, again, like I said in the Rinkside Rundown, the long shot that it's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is by far and away the longest shot here, and it is a 99.99% chance of being not Joe Burrow. But Mac Jones is even a relatively longer shot, and even if it is Mac Jones, I think you would have to name him the starter, because you are giving up probably a second, maybe even a first round pick. It's not going to be a day 3 pick of the draft, because there's going to be other suitors. There's going to be the Chiefs who still think their window's open and don't have Mahomes out for most of the season and are willing to give up a pick for that. So you've got like a bidding war here. But you've also got the 49ers, the team that Mac Jones is on right now. And Brock Purdy has gotten hurt over the last couple of years. So they might not even want to trade him, just because of the other quarterback on their own roster might not even be fully healthy. So I think Mac Jones is also just like a long shot here. So I do have QB options to come in and compete with JJ McCarthy to be the week 1 starter. So I think that is likely going to be how it plays out here. I don't think that they are going to move on here, because I do have some reckless speculation on a trade possibility here if they do end up deciding to trade JJ McCarthy. Again, that is a big if. It is called reckless for a reason. But let's go over these QB options here first. I have 3 options here that I could see coming in and being at least decent and being like a solid backup, because I don't think that the way they handled it last year with Sam Howell is really going to be how they can handle it this year. I think they are going to need their backup quarterback in the room, in the building at least, when training camp starts. And Carson Wentz played well, but I think he could have played better if he had been here from the beginning of training camp. So speaking of which, Carson Wentz is one of my options here. I think Carson Wentz is an option to I think compete with JJ McCarthy. I think JJ McCarthy would have the lead over him, in the betting odds of who the starting QB would be week 1. But Carson Wentz, I think, is an option here for the backup QB or the non-JJ McCarthy starter at this point. I think another option too, and this might be more of a competition, is Kirk Cousins. We've talked about Kirk Cousins this offseason so far. I think Kirk Cousins is an option to legitimately come back at this point. And then the third option here, bring him in on a 1-year deal. I know he's old. He might retire at this point, but it's Joe Flacco. I think Joe Flacco, and like another guy that's old is could be Aaron Rodgers, but I think Aaron Rodgers is in the same is the free agent version of Mac Jones, basically. I think you would make him the starter basically right away. I don't think he would sign here without more of a guarantee that he would be the starter. I think Kirk would be okay if you said you will have a legitimate chance at being the week 1 starter. We're going to have a competition, but you have a legitimate chance of being the week 1 starter. I think the other two would be more okay if you just said, we want you to be the backup. So I think those are the three, I think, realistic options at this point. If it's not JJ McCarthy being the starter, I think, I guess I could add Aaron Rodgers into that too, being the fourth. If you aren't going JJ McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers, I think Rodgers is a better option, I think, than Mac Jones, because you don't have to give up draft capital for him. But again, if we're talking those three as the backup, and JJ McCarthy does start week 1, it's what is like the leash length if McCarthy isn't playing well. And again, I'm going to say we are assuming that he is healthy. And I think there's two ways to look at this. I think there's two answers here. One option is if the Vikings are playing well, and it's literally just the quarterback that's not playing well. The defense is playing well. Basically, the last 5 games, 5, 6, 7, 8 games of the regular season, if that plays out again, and like but the entire season, what's McCarthy's leash length at this point? And I think if the Vikings are playing well like that, I think it's 4 to 5 games. I think it's somewhere around 4 to 5 games, because less than that could be written up as more of a fluke. He's coming off an injury-riddled season. So I think you got to give him that kind of 4-game mark minimum, and then maybe closer to 5 games. I think if the Vikings just as a team, I'm looking at the defense more, if they aren't playing well, I think it's double-digit games at this point. So I think it's somewhere between 4 to 5 games if the Vikings are playing well, and 10+ if they are, because I think they'd rather just develop McCarthy at that point and just have a better answer of knowing if he is actually going to be good or not. So with also going back to the and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but going back to the Kwesi firing, at this point, like I can bring it up here. If McCarthy isn't playing well, and if Kwesi, now that Kwesi has been fired, if McCarthy is not playing well at this point, there is nobody to blame but KOC. Like, there's nobody else that can be fired but KOC. So I think KOC, we try to, sports fans try to say, is this coach's seat hot or not? Like, what's the temperature of this coach's seat? I think it's warm to KOC's seat is warm to, like, maybe not hot, but like half a step below hot at this point. Like, I think if McCarthy doesn't pan out this year, I think the next domino to fall is Kevin O'Connell. And I do like Kevin O'Connell as a coach. That's the way I see it. So, and I think some of these guys here are we've got some other coaching hires that KOC brought in, and hopefully he can bring them in and have them help him. So first one is that Frank Smith was hired as the assistant head coach. He was formerly the Dolphins offensive coordinator. I think that was a year ago. I think that was in the 2024 season. He was the Dolphins OC. Gerald Alexander was hired as the defensive passing game coordinator and the defensive backs coach. He previously worked with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ryan Nielsen was hired as the defensive running game coach. He was the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator. And then Keith Carter was promoted from assistant offensive line coach to to just the like head offensive line coach. He's not the head coach. He's just the offensive line coach. He's not an assistant anymore. So KOC is bringing in some more of his guys like that too. So I did say that I had some reckless idea basically here. This also comes into where there's a player in this draft that is a position that the Vikings need, that I absolutely love. So this is partially where I just think that this guy I think would help this defense a ton too. And I think too, this team in 2026 is still going to have to rely heavily on this defense, this defense that was fantastic this past season. But I think they are going to have to rely on B-Flow and the defense. So there's 2 trades, and then I'll tell you the Vikings are going to get a pick, and I will tell you who they will take with the pick. So the first trade is that you trade JJ McCarthy. And this is all again, I don't think that this is going to happen. I just want to say, I don't think that this is going to happen, but this is an idea that I had that I just thought I would bring to the viewers of the 301 show. So this is based off of the reports that they were, the non-Pelissero report that they were close to trading JJ McCarthy to the Raiders last offseason. So, and this is also based off of the fact that Dante Moore, the Oregon quarterback, was projected to be in the NFL draft, but then decided to go back to Oregon. And he was projected to go number 2 overall to the New York Jets. So the Jets basically need a young quarterback. So I think the Jets receiving JJ McCarthy, they will get the 18th overall pick in the 2026 draft. That is the Vikings' first round pick, and the 82nd overall pick in the 2026 draft. So that is the Vikings' third round pick. Now, they do have the 96 overall pick, I believe it is. It's something in the 90s, mid to early 90s that the Vikings have. That is the compensation pick that they received for Sam Darnold walking last year. So they still do have a third round pick. And then the Vikings would receive the second overall pick in the 2026 draft. So the second overall pick this year. The Vikings would then trade their 49th overall pick, which is their second round pick in the 2026 draft, to the San Francisco 49ers. And the Vikings would receive in exchange Mac Jones. So Mac Jones would be the starting quarterback for the Vikings in 2026. Then you can bring in, again, Carson Wentz to be the backup. You can bring whatever in to be the backup. In you probably wouldn't bring in Cousins, because I think Cousins would want at least a chance to be the starter of the team. So you could bring in Wentz, you could bring in Flacco, you could bring in someone like that to be the backup to Mac Jones. But then the Vikings use the second overall pick to select out of Ohio State safety Caleb Downs. I know that's probably a little high for where he's projected to go, but for this to all work out, they would need to get the second overall pick, because the teams around that all have quarterbacks that they're not going to move off of. So you would take Caleb Downs as the second overall pick in the 2026 draft. And again, if this is a position of need, especially if it is, which again he hasn't yet, but if Harrison Smith confirms that he is retiring. Now, there's a chance, and it was a lot bigger than before Brian Flores said he was, or before he confirmed that he was coming back. There's a chance that Harrison Smith returns to the Vikings and doesn't retire this season. I do think that is I think that has a better chance of happening than my reckless trade idea here. But I still think that those are both small chances of happening. But that is my trade here. So the Vikings would give up JJ McCarthy, the 18th overall pick, and the 82nd overall pick for the second pick in this year's draft. And then they would also give up the 49th overall pick for Mac Jones, and they would select Caleb down. So they would basically take with 3 picks, they would take Mac Jones and Caleb Downs as their you can look at it kind of like that. So let me know what you guys think about that down in the comments down below. Let me know who you think will be the week 1 starter this season. I do have a prediction about JJ McCarthy coming up here, so you can see exactly what I am thinking at this point. But like the Target Field Talkers we'll go over, I didn't have any come off the board, so I am at 50 correct predictions out of 144 total predicted that have come off the board, and that is 35% correct. So in case you're wondering, the percentages standings at this point are Target Field Talkers at 30%, just under 30%, but it rounds up to 30%. Then in third place, Wolves Den at 34%, and then Nordic Report at 35%, and Rinkside Rundown at 42%. In terms of just the raw numbers of total predicted or total correct predictions, it is Target Field Talkers have 30 total correct, Wolves Den has 44, Rinkside Rundown has 46, and the Nordic Report has 50. So those are the 2 orders for those. I tend to keep it based off of the actual standings here of these are based off of the percentages, not the total correct. But that brings the overall total to I have had 170 correct predictions between all 4, and then that is out of 485 total predictions that have come off the board, and that is 35% correct. You got 3 predictions coming on the board here for the Nordic Report. That is JJ McCarthy will be on the Vikings 53-man roster in week 1 of the 2026 regular season. So whether he's the starter or the backup, that doesn't matter. I'm just saying that I don't think that my thing will actually come true. I just think that is a reckless trade idea. But my second prediction is that the Vikings will draft a center at some point in the 2026 draft. And then the third and final prediction is that the offensive line is going to be better again. The Vikings quarterbacks, and I know it's not all on the sacks aren't only on the offensive line, but this is the easiest way, most quantifiable way for me to do that and say that the Vikings quarterbacks will be sacked less in 2026 than in 2025. All right, welcome in to the Power Ranking segment, the segment we do at the end of each and every episode of the 301 show, where we take a Minnesota sports topic and rank it from 1 to 10. I guess we go from 10 to 1 when we reveal these. So this, in weeks past, we have done, last week we did the one who got away, we did celebrity fans, we did the top 10 weather moments, and the best comebacks. Those are the last few that we have done. The one for this week is the top 10 fan favorite players in Minnesota sports history. So if you have an idea like a top 10 fan favorite, leave it in the comments down below. You can also email the show at frozennorth30@gmail.com as well. I will be able to see and read all of the emails that you guys send in. But we have the top 10 fan favorites. And again, these aren't necessarily just the best players, the most popular players. These are just who I deem as just like the fan favorites. And the production on the field or the court or the rink does not actually matter. So at number 10 here, again, I still see a lot of love for this guy when he's at Target Field and when he's at Twins games. But number 10 is Tony Oliva. A lot of people are just when he's at Twins Hall of Fame ceremonies, he's getting his name shouted out when he's leaving the field, and he's in commercials still. So his clearly the marketing is still working with Tony Oliva at this point. At number 9, we move to the ice rink. He is one of the few on this list that are still playing today. But number 9, I have Marcus Foligno. I think he is another massive fan favorite. He will not be the only member of the Minnesota Wild on this list. But number 9 is Marcus Foligno. It sounds like they're booing him, but they're really saying Moose in the stands when he gets announced. Number 8, the true single season sack king. Number 8 is Jared Allen. Again, his rodeo celebration, sack celebration, is a thing of a legend. So number 8 is Jared Allen. Number 7, again, maybe the best player on this list. Number 7 is Kevin Garnett. Again, I do think at his sport, he might be the best player on this list right now. But again, very clearly that he still loves Minnesota. Minnesotans, Timberwolves fans still love him. The jersey retirement was delayed for not his fault. Number 6, I've got a hometown kid, and because he's the hometown kid is the only reason I have him ahead of Kevin Garnett here. Number 6 is Joe Mauer. And again, it might be some recency bias too, but number 6, I have Joe Mauer. We'll get the top 5 pulled up here. But right now, 10 through 6 is Tony Oliva, Marcus Foligno, Jared Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Joe Mauer. Number 5, I think this guy is the number 1 fan favorite of the Twins. Couldn't put Joe Mauer ahead of him, but I only say that because he actually delivered 2 World Series rings to the Twins. That would be Kirby Puckett. I think Kirby Puckett, for that reason alone, if Joe Mauer had delivered at least even just 1 ring, I think he would be ahead of Kirby Puckett on this list. Number 4, another hometown kid here. He came back to the Vikings this year. At number 4 is Adam Thielen. Just again, another Detroit Lakes kid, undrafted, I think Minnesotans do appreciate the underdog story and just appreciate too all the work that he had to do to get to the NFL. Number 3, just one of the best personalities on and off the ice. And again, I mentioned him earlier in this episode. Number 3 is Marc-Andre Fleury. I do think he is the number 3 fan favorite here. And again, I do think he would be number 1 if not for the top 2 here. Number 2, he had his own towel with his name on it. Number 2 is Naz Reid. And I just, again, 2 words. Not my entire reason here is 2 words. 2 words, Naz Reid. Number 1, again, he had the least amount of average time on ice, but he was the number 1 jersey sale when he was playing for the Wild. Number 1, rest in peace, is Derek Boogaard. So I do have Derek Boogaard as the number 1 fan favorite on this list. I do think Naz Reid and Marc-Andre Fleury are pretty close to Derek Boogaard, but I still put him as the number 1 fan favorite in Minnesota sports history. That'll do it for this episode of the 301 Show, episode 55. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking this video. It also helps me out to get this video out to other people that are Minnesota sports fans and want to tune in. Also, subscribe to the channel too. You can comment down below where you agree with me, disagree with me. You can email the show to frozennorth30@gmail.com. But we will see you next time for episode 55 of the 301 show. Peace.